Okay, so this is Adam Mercado from Lean Angles TV, and I'm here at California Speedway with Richard Stanboli of Attack Racing. You're out here today giving a little shakedown to the MotoGP bike?
Yes, our shakedown got rescheduled for after the first event since we had some issues with a couple of vendors. But yeah, so our official shakedown was at Laguna, but our unofficial shakedown is here for Indy. I mean, every time the thing turns a wheel, we make it better. Every session we're making it better. We just ran out of time, and we had a fuel pump issue in the very morning, or else we would have made the field for sure. And the attrition, the way it went, I'm positive we would have been in the top 14, let's say, even if we were dead last, which would have been for a bike that was built in 3 months, never turned a wheel, show up at a GP and just barely missed the field. That's not too bad. You know, I think it's from the ground up. It's not a copy of a Suzuki or a Kawasaki or a Honda or anything. It's a completely new design motorcycle. It was all our own chassis numbers and our design. So I think we're satisfied with the fact that it ran flawlessly every particular session, and there's just a lot of stuff to go through. The electronics, the suspension, the linkage, the steering, the rider's ergonomics. You know, so all those things you have to kind of go through, but you can't go through it methodically at a Grand Prix. For example, just last night we took the fuel tank back to the shop, and since the rider sitting on the fuel tank, we lowered it 30 millimeters. And he was immediately, wow, this is a big improvement over the complete package of motorcycle. Because, you know, the rider's a big lump of meat that sits on a bike. So you move his mass around, and that makes a huge difference. I mean, guys move engines around a few millimeters. Imagine moving a rider 30. And so those are kinds of things that we worked on and made the bike dramatically better. So I think if we were to go back to Laguna today, we'd be right there. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound cocky, but I'm fairly certain we'll make the grid. You know, I think we put our worst foot forward at Laguna.
Yeah, like you said, there was vendor issues and turning a wheel the first practice session, and with all that behind you, it's all experience under the belt.
Yeah, we had to basically rebuild the motorcycle 2 days before the first test because we didn't have a shock that would fit. The shock wasn't delivered, and it was promised for 3 months, and it was never built and never delivered. And so we had to change the swing arm, the fuel tank, the linkage, the pull rods. All those things were machined within the weekend. And unfortunately, we paid for a nice expensive test with Bridgestone. And the poor guys got a nice vacation in Bakersfield. Our competitors and fans alike were all, you know, 2 thumbs up for us. I wish we didn't let them down and made the field, but you know, that just wasn't meant to be that weekend. So. Yeah, no, I would say that there's a lot of enthusiasm. I'm sure there's still some doubting Thomases, and I say to them, you know, where's your GP bike? We tried, miserably failed at Laguna to do that because the bikes were so different that we found ourselves changing the super bike in ways we never thought of, especially since we had a pretty good run in Mid-Ohio. Steve was just, I think, a second out of the podium position. And I don't think we even were qualified in the top 10 in Laguna. So it was a pretty miserable failure as far as that's concerned, doing both at the same time. But we've been running both at the same time, been building a motorcycle and racing competitively in the AMA. Yeah, I mean, if you look at a Yamaha GP bike or a Honda, I mean, you find a lot of similarities. You know, we're inspired by the guys running up front. We're not inspired by the guy who's not running up front. And so the mass centralization, the fuel tank location, the adjustability in the chassis, the rigidity of the chassis, all that stuff is basically a purpose-built race bike, not a stock street bike made to ride 2 people, things like that. The linkage geometry, steering geometry, the forks, the brakes, carbon, all that stuff is all top-shelf stuff, and we intend to be very competitive with a motorcycle. It's just going to take more time than we would like to spend getting to that point. Well, our shop, if you go to attackperformance.com, you'd see that we are a CNC shop. We design our own components, and we've made many similar products over the years. We used to build swing arms in the early days when Gixxer's had just 2 struts going backwards, basically a fork and basically an aluminum fork that held your rear wheel in. We'd brace those things, and we built You know, so it wasn't that far out of our realm to go ahead and just do the ground up 3D motorcycle. And so no, we've never had any intention of using Suter, Harris, or FDR, or EQR, or any of those other ones. As a spectator, I like to see prototypes. I like to see 30 prototypes out there. You know, but as a competitor, you can't build a prototype. So the CRT rules made it possible for us to do it. You know, we just don't have that money that you need to build a true prototype, or the amount of time. You know, I'd say, yeah, maybe in 2 years we could build an engine, you know, starting from the ground up as far as development goes. And we showed we can build a complete motorcycle in 3 months. So yeah, the engine is probably the hardest part. And so I think Espeleta was pretty smart in the way he's doing his business and how he filled the field, because the whole prototype scene was going downhill quickly. And there's so much politics in that. I'm learning the price is so high, and the leases, and the secretiveness, and all those things. It just, you know, I know GP is kind of torn, because I know GP should be a pure, you know, open, highest level of motorcycle racing possible, but I don't think the world economy can maintain it. You know, the Japanese and Italians can maintain it, the amount of money it takes, and to have a peak field. You know, those guys were all putting out 6 motorcycles or 4 motorcycles each, and I think they were forced to do so, and they had to have so many people in the field, and I think that just was costing a lot of money. And I think the CRT thing makes it a little more interesting. I mean, they are kind of grid village, you know, and they have their own little class. So it's kind of, I've seen a lot of car series where they run 2 classes in one. So I think that's the way I see it. I don't see the CRTs as being competitors to prototypes. I see the CRTs as their own class, racing within themselves. And in that way, it's made it possible for us to be competitive. I think the technology is more evenly spread now. I think that for instance, we have an ECU that is every bit as fast calculating and has all the features of any of the front runners. And so I think it's just a matter of us getting it right. So I haven't watched all the races, you know, I've been busy doing stuff. And but I think that there's been less people being lapped, if none at all, than what you're saying, up to 8th place. I think that the margin is much tighter.
It is. It's
and
been impressive.
they improved the tires. Bridgestone improved the tires. So now I watched one race. So it looked like a 600 Super Sport race. Those guys were dicing so hard at the beginning of the race. They do get spread out. Of course, you know, top 3, they seem to go out and have their own race, but they're having a race. And every race, there seems to be a 1, 2, 3 type battle instead of one guy running away. So I think that's a huge improvement over what it was a couple years ago. I think that production engines are getting pretty damn good. I mean, our engine revs at 15,000 reliably every single shift, and it could run for 2 or 3 rounds. And so I think that they're getting pretty good, and we're up there in horsepower. We weren't the slowest bike in the field at Laguna power-wise, and we won't be at Indy. So I think it's very realistic that the production-based engines with some customized work would work, but I don't think you need to necessarily run a production-based engine in CRT. You can build your own engine. Just somebody can take for 20,000 euros or whatever the rule is. So yeah, I think it's an interesting class for me. Yeah, I like to see only prototypes too as a spectator, but I think they can make a bigger show out of the CRT show, make it like a 2-piece show where you have the prototypes and you have. But I heard rumor that they might all be CRTs in the near future.